Hello, everyone. Welcome to the office hours for COIS FRSC2750, Computer Crime and Forensics. This is our fourth office hours. We're in week 4. Thanks for taking the time to come out and watch this live, or if you are watching a recording of this afterwards, thank you for taking the time to do that as well. I'm going to make just a couple opening remarks. I'm going to go back over some stuff that I've talked about before, and I will take questions all the way through. Feel free to either jump in with audio, video once I get through my little preliminary remarks here, or put them in the chat. If you put them in the chat, you can do them anonymously to the rest of the class by private messaging me. So just sending it to me, or you can pose the question to everyone. Munanga. I hope I've said your name correctly. I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Munanga.
Sorry.
You did really well. I was just putting my hand up in preparation for as soon as you're done, just on the first.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm in class right now, so I just stepped out.
Okay, sounds good. I will. I'll grab you as soon as I'm done my opening remarks. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Munanga. Okay, so opening remarks are for the people that have never been to an office hours or haven't watched one or whatever, and are still not seeing their quizzes. That means that you haven't done the 2 mandatory components. The first one is the academic integrity module. The academic integrity module is a separate course under Blackboard, just like 2750 is a course and all your other courses are courses. You will find academic integrity there. If you've already done it this year, you don't have to do it again. You just have to send me a screenshot through the submission process under assessments, okay? Don't send me an email. There's a very detailed description and a sample of what I'm looking for, and send it to me. I have to mark that manually. And the significance of that is either you can be very impressed that I've marked about 700 of those so far this term, or you can note that because I have to mark it manually, if you send it to me Friday at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, hoping to squeeze in the quizzes, there's a chance you're not going to be able to see the quizzes because I may not mark it till Saturday, okay? If you haven't done that, please do it as soon as possible. I guarantee that I will mark anything that's submitted before 5 o'clock on Friday for sure. I try to mark a little later than that, but I don't guarantee it. So please get that in. The other component that you have to have done under mandatory stuff so that you can see the quizzes is the course requirements quiz. That's the 24-question quiz, most of which comes from the syllabus, the rest of which is available through the link under course content general about APA formatting. So there are a limited number of attempts on that. I add 5 additional attempts each week. So we're at 20 attempts, I believe. Quite sure. If you blast through all those 20 attempts, that's fine, but I won't be adding attempts until Saturday, so you'll miss the quiz. The idea is that I want you to do research and not sort of randomly guess until you stumble on the right answer. Okay, so those are the 2 requirements. If you detail, feel free to do one of 2 things. If you're live here, ask me more questions. I'm happy to answer more questions about it. Or 2, go ahead and watch the office hours 1, the very first office hours, because I went into all sorts of detail there. And I've talked about it every single time up until and including this time. So that's what's preventing people from seeing the quizzes if you're having that problem. Check your grade center. You may have submitted an academic integrity module submission and you may not have got it right. So meaning that your name wasn't showing in it or something else. And I will have given you feedback. So you may only have a half out of 1. You need 1 out of 1 on that and 24 out of 24 on the course requirements quiz in order to proceed to the chapter quizzes. All right. So that's my first pause here. Munanga, do you want to jump in? Is this a good time?
Yes, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much. So I have watched your office hours. Usually I do have to take the time to watch them after because I have
Sure.
class from 6 to 8.
Sure.
However, I don't know if I'm sure you get a myriad of emails, but you just emailed me back.
Oh.
So it was in regards to the chapter quizzes. So I did watch your office hours where you said that it was due at 11:59, but when I was listening to it, I guess maybe it was more of a misheard thing. Like I was thinking your 1 second late meant like, so like 11:59, because it has 59 seconds in it. I was thinking 1 second late meant midnight.
Yes.
As opposed to it be like, because I sent it right on like right on the dot. I
Yeah,
sent
I
a
understood.
picture. Yeah. So like I'm just wondering, yeah, like what would be your explanation for still giving the 0? Because I did still hand it in on time. Like it's and it doesn't say on Blackboard, nor does it say on in the syllabus that it should be like 00. It only says 11:59.
So Manunga, if you look in the syllabus, it actually does say 11:59:00 for that exact reason.
It does.
Look under your week 1, your week 2, your week 3, and so forth.
All right, in that case, I might be wrong then.
I understand that. And so this gives me a chance to explain while you're looking at that. This gives me a chance to explain to you and to everyone else. It's not that I want to be difficult. Some people may think that. The problem is if I give people 59 seconds or 1 minute or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever beyond the due date, then the people that complain are the people that are 5 minutes plus 1, 3 minutes plus 1. There's no end to it. So I just pick that line in the sand when it's due. And Blackboard, it's unfortunate. I agree. It's weird that it's 00 as opposed to 59. I agree. I've done this so many times. I know that that's how Blackboard works. That's why I put the 00 in. And that's why I try and emphasize 1 second late is late. And I get it. The good news, it's 1.5% of your final mark. It's not a big deal. Okay. Hopefully it's not a big deal. I expect to do well. So, okay.
I'm going to cry myself to sleep tonight, but I'll be fine.
Well, hopefully you get a good sleep. Thanks for your question.
No, thank you so much for answering.
Take care. Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, that's a perfect question. I love that. I love giving clarity and there is actually generally a rationale for most things I do. I'm not opposed to rethinking my rationality or my thought process at all. But I have taught this particular course I've been involved with since 2014. And I kind of know, and it's always 300 to 400 students. So it's a massive class each and every time. So I'm particular because I've figured out over the years what works and what does not work. And I just don't have the opportunity to reopen quizzes because that opens the quizzes for everybody and it's chaos ensues. So I have tried that in the past. There's all sorts of lessons that I've learned. So your comments may not necessarily help you in this course, but it may help future people in the course. So do keep them coming. Do be aware of what's going on. Second thing I wanted to talk about were discussions. So everyone that submitted discussion 1 should have their discussion marks back. With all sorts of feedback. So take a look in your grade book, look at your mark, drill down, look at your feedback, please. We're giving you the hints that you need, hopefully, to do well in the course so that you can get better at the discussions. They're a fairly big part of the mark. I believe they are best 4 out of 5. Yes, they are best 4 out of 5. So even if you did terribly in the first one, don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. You have a chance to get still perfect in the discussions. Read the feedback, learn from it. If you have questions about that feedback, please address them I would address them to myself and all the workshop leaders. I would say what group number I was, and then the appropriate person that marked it will respond to you. So what we do is we divide our marking assignments. So if you're in groups 1 to 6 in this particular case, Jordan was the workshop leader that marked your content. So that's not going to change. Sorry, that is going to change each and every discussion. So maybe next time it's me. If you're discussion group 3 and 4, maybe I mark 3 and 4 next time, whatever. So do respond to that feedback if it's not clear to you. And the idea was I released it probably in all groups up to 10. I released it last night, and then groups 11 and 12 was released first thing this morning, somewhere around 7 o'clock, maybe a little earlier than 7 a.m. So the idea was that you'd have a chance to read that before you had to submit your discussion 2 post 1. So hopefully that's all relatively clear, and we can we can continue to improve on that, and keeping in mind that essentially the first one was a freebie. Now, I did not charge any late submission. We may have noted the late submission, but you should not have received any marks docked for a late submission. We will be charging late submission moving forward, okay? So as I've said in the past, we give really, really detailed feedback for the first couple of discussions. Then we scale it back for the third, and then we give very little feedback on the 4th and 5th. The idea being that if you haven't read the feedback we provide to you up to that point, you're probably not going to read anymore. So it just, typically what I see is there's more and more perfect scores as people figure out what we want and react to the feedback. And the people that are continuing to get, let's say 3 out of 5 or whatever, they're not reacting to the feedback. So we're not going to waste our time providing that feedback. So please do read the feedback. It takes an awful long time to mark 350 times 2 posts, but it's worth it. I believe in the process. And if you'll read that feedback, you'll continue to improve, and you have a real chance of having some perfect marks in your discussion posts, okay? Which goes a long ways towards having a really good mark in the course. So at this point, just on that note, if you look in your grade book, the marks that have been awarded at this point are out of 9.5 if you've done quiz 3 at this point. If you haven't done quiz 3, then you're only at 8. Blackboard does a little bit of a weird thing. So with all of my courses, the marks, whatever it's out of, is the number of % that it contributes towards your final mark. So your discussions are marked out of 5. Now, the exception is if you did all 5 discussions, it's best 4 out of 5. So your mark could be overstated by the end of the term. But ignoring that, and Blackboard's just not smart enough to do that calculation for us, unfortunately. Ignoring that, though, if your quiz is worth 1.5% of your final mark, it's marked out of 1.5. So that'll tell you the total that you've got in the numerator. So if it says you've got 7 out of 9.5 at this point, then that 7 is your 7% of your final mark is sitting there. So you've got 7 marks, okay, towards your final. The weird thing that I was saying that Blackboard does is if you didn't submit, let's say quiz 1 out of 1.5, then it would state, and you've done all your discussions and you've done everything else. So your marks are really out of 9.5, and you didn't submit a quiz for 1.5, it would tell you your mark is out of 8. So you could have an 8 out of 8 mark, but you didn't do quiz 1. So you're really at 8 out of 9.5. The way I can get around that is putting zeros in. If you get a 0, I'm not prepared to put 350 up to 350 zeros in, or whatever fraction of people that don't do it. So just know, like, just take a look through. Don't trust the denominator in that equation. Trust the numerator. That's the number of marks you've earned towards your 100% in the course. Hopefully that's clear. Okay. I think that's all that I wanted to go over. Just bear with me. I just want to look at, so this week's schedule, we're on week 4, which technically ends on Sunday, but really ends tomorrow, right? Because everything's due at 11:59:00 tomorrow on Friday. So what's due for you is the chapter 3 quiz and discussion 2 post 1. Okay, so your original response to the question that I've asked is due. And if you don't get to it, that's fine. You're going to take a 10% hit on your mark, but don't skip it because there's a lot of marks in discussions. If you couldn't get it done for whatever reason, that's fine. Do it on the weekend or on next week or whatever. Get 2 posts in there to get as many marks as you can, even with the little penalty. And I'm just looking at questions here. I got a 4.8 out of 5 for my discussion. Is this a good benchmark? Is a perfect score easy to get? I had minor grammatical issues, but was the ideal grade for discussions. So a 4.8 is fantastic. That's a fantastic mark, okay? A perfect score is relatively easy to get, meaning that we're not too rigorous about it. If you write something really well, whatever the comments were, if you had some minor grammatical issues, maybe you've got a friend that can help you by rereading your post. Perhaps you can reach out to the academic skills and work on your grammar a little bit. It is very easy. It is definitely very easy to get a 5 out of 5. So I shouldn't say very easy. It is very possible to get a 5 out of 5. I give a lot of them out. Okay, especially typically, like I said, as students iron out whatever little problems that they have in the early going, lots of students will end up with multiple 5 out of 5s. So hopefully that answered your question. Is there any campus discussion / essay writing workshop rooms we can attend to get help to improve? That's a great question. So the right people, and unfortunately, as you may have figured out, I'm not on campus. I very seldom attend campus. I'm a remote teacher. So it's not that I haven't taught on campus, but I teach in the evenings. I'm full-time employed elsewhere. The right people are the academic skills people to reach out to, Shan. If you go to, I'm just going to navigate there while I'm talking to you. If you go to course content, general, and you look at for instance, the academic skills proofreading strategies video, at the bottom of that in the write-up, there is a link for academic skills group. So if you follow that link, that'll take you to the academic skills page in Trent. And I presume that there'll be some contact information there somewhere. Book an appointment. Yeah, so there's a button to book an appointment right there. Okay. I was wondering if we get feedback, even if we get a 5 out of 5. Typically, Livia, I do not personally. I leave that up to my workshop leaders. My comment on a 5 out of 5 is well done. That's typically what I do. I'll occasionally point something out that I won't deduct a mark for, or a partial mark or whatever for, occasionally. But typically a 5 out of 5 means that you're close enough to perfect that there's not a lot of comment to be had. If there's some really minor infraction that I don't feel like taking a mark for, I would say, for instance, one of my standard comments is if you did it once or you missed one capitalization or something like that, I'd say watch the capitalization or something like that. I might say that. If you did it more than once or egregiously or whatever, I deduct marks and put it as a comment there. But occasionally you'll get a 5 out of 5 with a little comment. But typically for me, it's just a well done. Okay. It's just because it's met the total standard. I mean, we're not going to get into the minutiae of making you an even better writer in this course. You've exceeded or met all the standards for us. Okay, does that answer your question, Olivia? Okay, perfect. Thank you. When will the criteria and topics for the term paper be posted? That's a good question, Ethan. That'll be sometime next week. I'm going to work on polishing up my topics, the way it works in general, and what I'll do is probably wait until the next office hours, and I'll make an announcement there. I'll do the polishing between now and the next office hours, and I'll get them ready to go. So what'll happen is you'll have, typically I think I've got 12 different topics, and I'll make sure I stick with that. And you'll see all the topics and you'll choose your own topic. Okay, so you'll be able to read through all the various topics, and I'll go into detail about this next office hours. But my advice is to look at all those topics, decide what interests you, and make sure at a quick glance that you can get some research in, because you need to be able to research the topic. If it's no good picking a topic that you find fascinating, that you struggle to find sources for, so it's hard to write an article on. Now, clearly every topic that I'm giving you does have enough sources, but make your life as easy as possible. Find something that's relatively interesting to you, hopefully very interesting to you, and that you've got lots and lots of information to sort through. Okay. That makes it easiest to write. If you've got too much information, it's a whole lot easier to write a good essay than if you have too little and you have to try and put a bunch of fluff in there to get up to the word count. Okay. Is that good, Ethan? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Excellent. I joined the class 2 weeks after it started and noticed I've not received a grade for my discussion post 1. Interesting. Okay. Now I'm sorry. I don't know how to say your first name. I would guess it's Zhao or Chow. I'm sorry. I'm terrible at that. Zhao or Chow? Which one? Chow? Sorry, just wait. First one. Okay, Zhao. Okay, Zhao. Zhao, let me look into that. If you don't mind sticking around till the end, I will look at that and I'll tell you exactly what's going on with that. If you just hang out till the end here, I'll just have a one-on-one chat with you and I'll make sure. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. Does anyone else have any other questions? Question for me after? Okay, so I've got a couple people that are going to stick around and sort of do a private question. And in that case, what I'll do is I'll put you in separate rooms and we'll just have a one-on-one and we'll have that conversation privately. Livia, how can I help you?
Hi, yes, sorry. I just wanted to premise with I'm at work and I'm on call, so I might have to step away at some point. So yeah. I just was hoping for some clarification. I had emailed you and we had a little bit of a conversation via email. I just was still uncertain about a couple of things. So I was hoping to take this opportunity. Sure. So I understand that you've mentioned in the previous weeks, the office hours, that you will not release the actual answers to our quizzes.
Yes.
And I recognize that it is open book quizzes. And I have used the book for the last 2. And I thought that I understood the textbook. I read the lecture notes and everything. Sure. So I still have yet to get perfect on the actual quizzes. Okay. So on the one side, I was hoping to clarify, is it word for word out of what is the textbook? Just because now that looking back at the previous questions, there's been a couple where maybe contextually or based on other outside knowledge, I'm oh, this is the right answer, but in the textbook it'll include maybe 2/3 of that answer. So would it be specifically strictly out of the textbook? Yes,
the answer to that's easy. Yes, it's specifically out of the textbook. So I've read the textbook. I may have slightly paraphrased, but don't overthink that. I may have used a synonym, so it's not word for word copied out of the textbook. But what I'm looking for is an answer not relying on any knowledge outside of that textbook. Okay.
And just then the second part to this question is also, I know that you don't release the actual answers, but is it possible have it to be released in terms of hey, you got this question right, you got this question wrong. That way you're not releasing the actual answers, but I, who put in the work to study to get ready for the test, can narrow down and try and figure out which question, where I went wrong in the specific test. Because I feel if I just get told I got 12 out of 15, I then don't know how to learn from my own mistakes. And so if at least I can narrow down which questions I get wrong, I can try and figure it out from there. But if I don't have at least a starting point of where I went wrong, I don't know how to learn.
Yep, I understand. No, I get it. And this is a common complaint. I'll call it a complaint or disagreement. Here's the problem that I'm facing. So we've got, let's say 350 students in the class. I'm not naive enough not to think that people aren't group writing my tests. So if I start telling people which ones they got wrong, then it doesn't take very long for someone that wants to figure out every single answer. The pool size, the textbook isn't that deep. There's not that many questions per chapter. There might be a pool of 40 or 50 questions per chapter. And I know that like these questions have been used in previous years. I know that there are cheating websites out there where many answers, and I know ChatGPT is going to cut into the course integrity as well. So I just don't have that option. I just don't have that option of confirming the right answer. It's a terrible thing to say, but just based on the scale of the number of students attempting, it would be too easy to have every single question 100% known, and that defeats the purpose of testing people, right? If they're just able to Google the answer, so to speak. Okay, and it's unfortunate. I get it, but I just don't have a choice, and I'm not going to provide any individual student with feedback because that's not fair to the rest of the class, and I can't turn it on for everyone to be able to do that. So
what about after the test is like finished, so that like once the deadline is passed and people can no longer submit that test at that point? Or do you have any other recommendations on how we can try and learn from our mistakes? Because like
sure.
as a student, I'm like, if I can't learn from my mistakes, then the test to me somewhat becomes in a way like useless, because how do I learn? How do I improve if I can't like at least try and learn?
So I can't do it after the test for the reason, for two reasons. One, for the reason that other students moving forward next year and so forth, I can't rewrite all the questions all the time. The other issue there is that we're using the same pools in the exams. So that's the good thing, right? So you'll recognize a portion of the questions when you get to your midterm finals, things like that. So to move on to the last part of it, how do you learn from it? I guess you try and note what questions you are not confident of, or you go through every single question and just make sure. I've recommended that you do take a screenshot of your submissions so that you can see exactly what you chose for each question. And I mean, the quizzes that you get 100% on, and you will, it sounds like you're very diligent, you will get 100% at some point. You'll know all those questions, and anytime you see those again, you'll have all those answers. But I don't really have a good way of doing it. My position is that the way that I want you to learn is not by learning by rote, by learning how to answer multiple choice questions. I want you to learn the material. So the testing is my way of seeing how your progress is. It's not meant to be a learning tool as such. If you can learn from it, that's great, but that's not its primary purpose. Okay. I get you're not going to be happy with that answer. I do understand that.
It's not that I'm not happy. It's just like, even if we do see the question again in the midterm, like I'm just going to repeat the same mistake. I'm not being given any opportunity to improve, to learn. Like I'm just being told, hey, you got it wrong, and you're never going to improve. And I don't understand how we're supposed to just yes, we'll see the question again. And do you just want us just to repeat the same mistake with no opportunity to try and do better and to learn?
Well, the way to improve is to go over all those questions, look them all up again, and see where you went wrong.
One thing I've learned, I haven't done this week's quiz yet, but on the last 2 weeks, I took photos of, before I actually hit submit, I took photos of the questions and of the answers. And I noticed that once I hit submit, it does pop up showing you what marks you did get for each question. So if you did get a question wrong, it'll show you on the side that you got like 0 out of whatever that question was. And then so from there, I've been able to at least go back to the screenshots I took and kind of correspond in a way.
That's what I was hoping for, but on my end, I'm not able to do that. Like, not immediately after my submission, not days after my submission. Like, at no point have I been able to access those scores, and that's all I've been trying to access, just for like my own ability to.
It's not supposed to. I don't know, Mackenzie, what browser or what way you're doing that, but it is not supposed to release that information. Period. So that's
okay.
Fortunate for you, but no, it's not and I'll review my settings to make sure of that, but it's not supposed to individually tell you what's going on for each question.
Okay. Like I said, I haven't checked for this week, but I know in my other forensics course, it did do it for the first 2 quizzes, but it doesn't anymore. So it might have just been the timing, like at the beginning. I don't know. So
are you saying in a different course that it did that, or in this course?
It did it in both, but when I did this week's for my other course, it didn't anymore. So it might be the same with this one. I haven't done.
It's a setting in Blackboard, so it's individual to the way the instructor set it, and it's possible that I made a mistake. Certainly, I haven't changed the settings this year from previous years. So if I did, I did, but I'll take a look through my settings. It's not supposed to do that. That's
okay.
All right.
I'll also let you know after I take it if it does still show.
If you don't mind, send me a screenshot. If you
okay, yeah, of course.
That'd be awesome. Thank you, Olivia. Did we exhaust your question?
I mean, I understand that you're just not going to give us any access to it. It's not like you didn't answer my question, because ultimately I still have no idea how to learn. But yes, I guess there's just black and white that answer is never going to get released.
I mean, there's not a problem with studying in a group. Obviously, you're not supposed to, anyways, group answer questions and take tests that way. But it's not like you couldn't have a second set of eyes or a study group to do that. I would just go through, if I knew, like when I write a question, and it's not necessarily right, because I've looked at people's quizzes and they say, oh, I'm sure I got this right. If you're unsure of anything, I would take a note of that. And that would be my first ones that I would research and see on a second view if I was wrong, right? So
I understand that, but if I'm doing the test open book the first time around with my notes and looking at the answer in the textbook the first time around, and I was confident based on the textbook in my answer, and then I don't know which one I got wrong, I literally took it out of the textbook. So it's looking at it again after I've submitted. I don't understand where I'm supposed to just guess that I went wrong, given that I took every answer out of the textbook to begin with. And also, I just want to clarify, would you, it sounded like to me, and maybe I just misinterpreted your words, you're recommending that over being able to access the answers after the quiz itself, you're recommending that we do try and do it as a group, so that as a group we can try and figure out what the answers are, rather than
study
giving...
not write it, study as a group, prepare as a group.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I've had academic integrity violations where there were 30 students that were group writing exams. I've dealt with that. Please don't do that. And I'm not talking to you specifically, no one else, please don't do that. If somehow I find that out, that's a big violation. But do study in groups, do get input. The other thing that I would address is you're under pressure when you're writing your test, that you're not under pressure when you're reviewing it. And you would be surprised, and it may not apply to you, but in the past, I've had all sorts of students. I've had students send me screenshots of 2 different questions and say, this is the same question. And it's not. There's a pressure element there where you may not be reading exactly what's there. So doing that review at some point afterwards when the pressure's off may give you some insight that you don't have at the time, even though you've got your notes open. Just a thought.
That is fair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Great discussion. And if I had a pool of 300 questions per chapter, this would be, and if it was a class of 30, this would be a whole different discussion. It's just the scaling thing doesn't work well. So I do apologize for it, but I don't really see that I have any option. Just shows a score. Yep. Well, if you don't give us the question, but the topic the question came from to narrow it down. So my Nalisha, thank you. My comment to that is if I've got an electronic textbook, which is what I would hope that most chose to do, I would be using keyword searching, and I do that within it, and I would look in the right chapter. So you do a keyword search for something somewhat unique in that question, and it should narrow it down. You can choose results from the chapter that you're in. That doesn't work so well if we're doing multi-chapters, but in our case, we know that it's in chapter 3 or chapter 4 or chapter 5 or whatever on each time. So do a keyword search to narrow it down. There's no way for me. Again, these are handwritten. So some of the textbooks, some of the large textbooks, the question pools are designed by the author. So we use those, we as instructors use those, and they come with information like what topic that it pertains to, because they've got a whole staff of people writing questions and doing the assessments. In this case, I read the book, I write down the question, I check my answers and go from there. I don't have the capacity to tell you what section. And I honestly don't want to. I don't want to get into the mentality where we're memorizing answers or it's about the specific answer. This is to make sure that you're reading and absorbing and reflecting on the content, and you'll know from your results how well that process is working. That's the idea. I used to not do chapter quizzes, but I quickly figured out that there's a big percentage of students that didn't read anything until it came to the midterm or the final if I didn't test chapters along the way. So that's my motivation for doing it. Okay. I appreciate the response. I understand the reason for not showing. Maybe we can allow 2 to 3 attempts to do better. Nope. Yeah, that becomes the same sort of thing. It's the same mentality why I don't allow more than 5 attempts a week on the mandatory requirements quiz. I don't want people guessing. I want you to do the best you can, and then if you have a weak showing, then you can spend some time going back and looking at the content itself. This isn't about getting perfect marks. It's not. Most people are doing well in the quizzes. It's just not about that. These quizzes are only worth 1.5% each. So the total of quizzes is only 15% on the thing. I'm not looking to give everyone perfect marks by giving them 2, 3 multiple attempts. I just don't want to do that. Okay. And I doubt that the questions were contradicting towards the textbook. Again, I wrote them. I take your time, reread the questions. I think you'll find that there's nothing in contradiction with the textbook. If you find that, send me a screenshot and give me a rationale. Tell me what you're thinking. And while I'm not going to give you the answer, I may be able to point you in a direction where you're misreading or not seeing something the way it's intended. Okay. Okay. So thank you. Thanks for Shan. Thanks for the question and everything. Does anyone else have any other questions that I can deal with, hopefully, and make you happier than my answers for this one? I know this is a pain point. It's just something that we're not necessarily going to agree on. So I apologize for that, but you've heard my rationale for why I do things the way I do. If you don't have further questions, thank you for taking some time. Thank you for the good questions. Do get on with your evening. Have a quiz this week. Have a good weekend. See you next week, and we'll talk more about the term papers next week. Okay, so thank you very much. And I will stick around for those of you that want to talk to me privately.